betting show. It is January 3rd, your one-stop shop for all your sports gambling needs. If you haven't done so yet, folks, give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks on Twitter. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel because me and Teddy are going to do this daily, and you're going to want those updates and notifications shot out directly. You can check out the show. Also, SBRodds.com. Get those latest line movements. Folks, if you haven't seen the show yet, you should have already seen it. He's Teddy. I'm Donnie. Let's get after it. Hot topics of the day is what we always like to start with here to sort of get into that little flow and that little mojo. And you see the background here every day that I'm coming from. No surprise, I'm an Eagles fan. So anytime there, Teddy, I can take a shot at these Giants or try to critique those guys just to the north of me right now. I like to do it. OBJ, hot topic. Eli Manning, hot topic. No surprise, Teddy. Giants didn't fold down the stretch, played it hard. Record wasn't what it was supposed to be. But the hot topic of the day for us, I think we can agree on, is should Eli Manning come back to those New York Giants, Teddy? I want your take first on this.
Sure, but first I got to make fun of you because of the fact that how long you been a sports bettor, Donnie? You've been a sports bettor for a while. You're not spring chicken.
For a while, yes.
Decades?
For a while.
How can you possibly be a fan of any team at this stage? There's no fans for sports bettors. Yeah, I used to be a Michigan
look,
fan.
you can't let the green get in the way of the fandom, even though the Eagles are green. But Teddy, anytime I get to take a shot at the Giants, I feel the liberty to do so. And today, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with it.
I'm sure you will, because the Giants have a significant problem. Eli Manning 2018 stats are solid when you look at the stats. 66% completions, close to 4,300 yards, 21 TDs to 11 INTs, a reasonable 92.4 passer rating. The stats don't blow off the page. You're going, oh my God, we got to replace this QB immediately. The eye test is a different story. When you watch Eli on the field, you say this is a quarterback who is clearly past his prime. He's surrounded with some pretty darn good skill position talent, and he can't seem to get them the football in space. The problem, of course, is if you dump Eli, who do you go get? Not a lot of great options out there for teams looking for QB. So, honestly, I ripped Eli all year. I ripped him last year. I don't see a better option on the table for the Giants in 2019. I think he comes back.
Yeah, and what Gettleman was talking about here, which I actually agree with, Teddy, there's a couple quotes that Gettleman has out there, and I think he has the right approaches because he's saying, all right, if Eli is not our quarterback next year, what is our plan B option? Do we just go out and get a Teddy Bridgewater? Do we go sign a Nick Foles to a big contract? Do we just try to jam, take that shoehorn and move up in the draft and try to get the quarterback, which we might not even believe is our future quarterback? So if you take an analytical approach to this and you sit back and say, well, the numbers do make sense, but you're right, Teddy. The eye test overall for the New York Giants and Eli Manning did not pass it. An offensive line that struggled to block, but yes, he has weapons. An all-world tailback, it seems like he's going to have a good career in the NFL. He's got some talented wide receivers and talented tight ends to work with. It should get better over time, but I just think they're in that crux of it is how do you get better if the New York Giants, if Eli Manning is your quarterback next year? Because Father Time is catching up to everybody. Eli is not going to improve his arm, his leg work, his speed over the next offseason here. That's going to be a tough one, Teddy. But let's transition and keep it on the Giants here. Wide receiver Odell Beckham, always a lightning rod when you see him, whether he's partying at the club, being on the football field, am I playing this week, what his hair color is, what his cleats are, always going to be a circus around him. Gettleman keeps on getting the same question asked to him. Even though signing a huge contract last year, the press still says, is Odell Beckham Jr. still going to be with the Giants next year? Which he says, absolutely. I don't agree with trading Odell Beckham Jr., especially this early in his contract. What's your thoughts on that, Teddy? OBJ and the Giants.
When you have the elite playmakers, you hold on to them like nobody's business. And for all of OBJ's off-field issues, and frankly, if he wasn't in the New York media market, the off-field issues wouldn't even be off-field issues. It's just the fact that he's in the glare of the New York media spotlight that creates these quote-unquote problems. I don't think they're problems. OBJ is a unique talent, and you look at all the teams in the NFL that don't have playmakers, Giants have several. You hold on to those and find a QB that can feed him the football.
I completely agree with that. Let's keep it moving. We'll stay in the NFC East in this one, Teddy. Obviously, as tomorrow goes Football Friday, we're going to break down completely all four of these games on the weekend. But there are some tidbits here, some outliers that we want to talk about here. And that's Ezekiel Elliott. Right now, raring to go, wants to play this football game, was put on the shelf in the last game versus the New York Giants to get him ready to be the bell cow for the playoffs heading forward. Teddy, looking at this game, we don't have to give a breakdown or analysis on this. To me, the key to the game is a healthy Cowboys offensive line. Zach Martin should be back for this football game. Also Tyron Jones. Why am I messing this one up here? Give me the tackle's left name. Tyron Smith. I'm sorry. We're on the fly here right now. But looking at these two tackles and running backs healthy for this game, he is key to this one. But we've seen it before, Teddy. Give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Does the Clapper, the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys, give him the football enough in this game? And is he ready to answer the challenge, Teddy?
Well, some of it has to do with what's happening on the other end. Betting against Pete Carroll and the Seahawks in opening round playoff games hasn't exactly been a strategy that's paid off for bettors in Carroll's 6 previous playoff appearances with the Seahawks. They've won and covered every time in the first round. They didn't cover when they were laying at Minnesota. They won the game thanks to that Blair Walsh missed field goal. The bottom line is Seahawks have been very good in these first round games. Dallas, obviously, in the Jason Garrett era, not so good in these opening round games, not so good in the postseason as a whole. That being said, Garrett made the right move to sit Zeke last week. The Seahawks defense, which we think of as dominant against the run, has not been dominant against the run this year. And if Dallas is going to win this game, it's not going to be Dak Prescott. It's going to be Zeke Elliott grinding it out on the ground. So the fact that he says, I'm ready to go right now, my mind, a positive sign for the Dallas Cowboys.
I like it, Teddy. And look, I'm going to pick your mind right now because I know you're going to love this as we do the show throughout the year. I'm a conspiracy theorist all the way through. Now, how many points are we going to give the Cowboys extra because the game is played in Jerry World where we see some mysterious fumbles sort of disappear and go back to the other football team or, infamous pass interferences of the Detroit Lions, Teddy? Are we getting a short line here? This line should be inflated an extra point or two because of how well Jerry Jones meshes with the league and the referees, especially at home.
You might be a conspiracy theorist. I'm not. And this is why. It's 2019, okay? Whenever there's a conspiracy, it comes out, all right? It's really hard to hide stuff. Now, when you talk about are the Cowboys better for TV ratings or better for the league than the Seahawks? Not in a significant way. 20 years ago, maybe. Not in 2019. So if Dallas is going to win this game, I believe it will be fair and square. I'm not expecting the calls to go in Dallas's favor.
All right, let's transition over to the NBA, the association in full effect last night, Teddy. Late night, we talked about it yesterday. The Oklahoma City Thunder invading the Staples Center, coming away with the victory. If I would have told you up front, hey, Russell Westbrook's going to get another triple-double last night, Teddy. It took him 3 for 20 on shooting to get that. But alas, Oklahoma City comes in, gets the win, gets the cover. No LeBron James moving forward. Nice win for the Oklahoma City Thunder here. And I always like to point this out, too. It's kind of funny. You're trying to recruit players. And Paul George, if we remember last year, Teddy, right? Signed, sealed, and delivered. Paul George is going to L.A. He's never going to stay in Oklahoma City. He stays there, goes after the victory. The fans boo him here. But nevertheless, you go on the road, you get a nice win over L.A. And LeBron needs to come back and help those Lakers out there, Teddy.
Well, it was all fourth quarter. I mean, the OKC has been consistent. And remember, they started the season 0-4. And since then, I believe they have the best record in the NBA, and it's all about defense. When the Thunder turn up the defensive intensity in the fourth quarter, like they did last night. I mean, the Lakers didn't have any open looks. They didn't have any transition opportunities. OKC defensively is at a different level than most teams in the NBA during crunch time. It was on full display last night. And of course, it's fun to see the fans booing Paul George every time. That's what makes the NBA fun, Yeah, he never said he was going to the Lakers. Everyone assumed he was going to go there, but Paul George's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to L.A.? No, he never said that. But now the Lakers fans get to hate him, and it's another rivalry in a league that has plenty of them. Fun game last night, exciting game. Congrats if you had an OKC ticket in your pocket. Lakers came up a little bit short during crunch time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, those Lakers fans, though, Teddy, when you take a look, right, apparently, I guess they're going to boo, Anthony Davis because he might not come there. If he doesn't come there next year, they might boo KD, sort of that little pampered style because, hey, we got Kobe Bryant here. We got Shaquille O'Neal. We got LeBron James here. Sort of expected there, but we'll see how they add on in the offseason because that seems more exciting sometimes than January and February basketball to see who might come, Teddy, in the next year or two there. Talking about L.A. sports franchises again in the news. Manny Machado, who was traded over to the Los Angeles Dodgers from the Baltimore Orioles. Still not signed yet, Teddy. And, as a sports fan, because my Philadelphia Phillies are still in it possibly for one of these two guys, But there's a lot of money at stake here. And one of the rare instances, in the NBA, like LeBron James sounds like 2 to 3 days after free agency starts. Same thing in the NFL. These guys don't need tours and wine and dine. And if we put your wife on the scoreboard, was that disrespectful if one city did it and another team didn't when they were courting them? Manny Machado on the table. Bryce Harper on the table. $300 million plus, Teddy, for both of these guys. Looks like they're going to anticipate. And the Phillies look like they're trying to extend it to over 10 years to Bryce Harper to make him come here. What is going on with baseball, Teddy? And why haven't we signed anybody yet? Why aren't these guys moving yet?
All right, multiple things to talk about here. First of all, what you see in the NBA is a hard salary cap. You don't have that in baseball. So teams are going to get X, players are going to get X, Y, and Z. They can get this from their current team and this from the other teams. And it's just a matter of where they want to go. No one can offer them more money. That's not the case in baseball. So that's why you see the NBA deals getting signed early. And in baseball, guys hang around on the shelf for week after week, in this case, month after month. Secondly, and let me make this very, very clear, you don't want to spend $300 million on Manny Machado, and you don't want to spend $300 million on Bryce Harper. And the two teams that sign these jerks are going to end up being very, very sorry for the signings and end up with these fat contracts. They're paying them $40 million a year at age 37 when they can't hit their way out of a wet paper
Wait, what are you
bag.
saying, Teddy? What are you saying?
Don't want Machado.
A good deal?
Don't want Harper. That's not the way to build a championship team, to spend $300 million on one guy. It's the wrong model. So get whoever you want. You want them? You want your Phillies want them? Go take them. Watch yourself. Second place, first round exit over and over again. Machado in particular. The guy's a jerk. All right, he's a flat-out jerk. Nobody likes him. His teammates didn't like him in Baltimore. His teammates didn't like him in L.A. Now you're going to pay him $300 million to be your franchise guy? Knock yourself out. Have a good time. No way.
No, I agree. The Manny Machado deal, which is interesting because obviously we'll take any one of these superstars in Philadelphia just to try to get up off the mat and have an interesting franchise for once. It's been a long time since the 2008 World Series, 2011 run with the four aces. But now looking forward here, sometimes styles mix. I think, Manny Machado is a perfect fit for Los Angeles. A little bit more laid back. If he comes east and he comes to the Yankees, you're going to expect him to perform at $300 million. Same thing with the Philadelphia Phillies. And his whole mantra, Teddy, of, you know what? I'm good sometimes running down the first base. I'm not really looking to hustle down there. We had Jimmy Rollins here, one of the centerpieces of our runs from 2008 all the way to 2011. And he used to not bust it down the line there, Teddy. So $300 million, we're expecting a lot, at least to get that runner down the line. One interesting point I do want to bring up, Teddy, about the baseball union, which I think is the best union in all of sports, usually pushing the guy. Doesn't matter where he wants to go. If another team's going to offer you substantially more, maybe 10, 20, 30 million over the life of a contract, they usually push you in the right direction, as is your duty for covering for the next guy coming up so he can make the money that you actually made and provided for your family as well. Looking at this situation, friendships here, Teddy, when we're talking about the Chicago Cubs, Kris Bryant, Bryce Harper, two Las Vegas guys, no surprise there that these guys get along. Will he take like a hometown discount for the Cubs? Is that a possibility? Or, like I say, will the union even allow it, saying, look, if the Phillies going to give you $325, you're not going to the Cubs for $275?
You bring up Jimmy Rollins, who I thought was a perfect example to bring up. Jimmy Rollins got paid, he got paid after the Phillies won their title, correct?
Yes.
You remember when he got his fat contract?
Yes, no, our GM was Ruben Amaro in Philadelphia, who said, you know what? You guys all earned it by winning it and paid these guys for 5 years too long, Teddy. So go ahead with your point. I'm about to agree with it.
Exactly. So Rollins won the title, got the contract, and then proceeded to, I'm not going to say single-handedly, but he sucked the Phillies organization down for years because they're paying him all that money. The team that signs Machado, the team that signs Harper will be dealing with those same situations, whether it's the Cubs I guess the Cubs do need bats. Their offense didn't work last year, but another bat isn't going to win a title. Pitching is going to win a title. It takes $300 million and just burn it before you give it to Machado. No way. You don't want these guys.
Yep, going against each other. Scott Boras out there just raising that price a little bit more, Teddy. I know we're, two old heads in this industry, but it wasn't too long ago that Alex Rodriguez and John Hicks, the owner of the Texas Rangers, where he was bidding against himself, Teddy, and paid an extra $50 to $100 million because he didn't know where the other buyer was. Baseball, fascinating sport to me with the negotiations. NFL lines, Teddy, on the, hey, look, this is our industry here. Some of these lines are on the move. The what's and the whys and the hows are what's going on. Playoff football in a dome. Let's take a look at it right now. The Colts and the Texans line, Teddy, on the move. We're talking totals here. Opened up at the Westgate at 47, now sitting around 48.5. Some interesting injury information coming through in this football game. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit better blocking because Kelly's going to be back in this football game. Why is this line on the move, Teddy? Let's try to get into some details here.
Well, it looks to me like there's two personnel issues that are in play here. Of course, one, you talked about this Colts center, Ryan Kelly, who did practice in full yesterday. Also, T.Y. Hilton, he re-hurt the ankle against Tennessee, but he is expected to go. The other issue, of course, with Houston, you got issues in the secondary. Jonathan Joseph doesn't look like he is going to be able to go. He's very questionable for this weekend. So one team got a key proponent on the offensive line. The other team lost a key defender. And we're talking about Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck. This will be Watson's playoff debut. That being said, when you look at the QBs making their playoff debuts, Lamar Jackson and Mitch Trubisky, I rank Watson well ahead of those two guys in terms of his capabilities for that first playoff game at home. And, of course, we know what Andrew Luck can do. He's been doing it for his entire career. He's been doing it all season for Indy. So I'm not surprised his total's been bet up. No weather issues to be worried about in Houston on Saturday, and a situation where the injury news has been in favor of points and offense, not the other way around.
Folks, this is That Betting Show, January 3rd. He is Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour. Give me a follow also if you want to at Right Side VP. Getting back to this game, Teddy, taking a look at because these two teams have played already, obviously division opponents. They played twice this year. When it comes up into your capping innuendos here, do you take into effect, Teddy, what actually happened between these two football teams? First game, 24-21. Second game, 37-34. And also, second part of this question for you, Teddy, it's a playoff game. Did these guys change their stripes in the playoffs? Maybe because Frank Reich, from what we've seen, a very, progressive coach and going for it on fourth down. Does he change his MO in the playoff game and say, you know what, on 4th and 2 from my own 46, maybe I don't go for it here, but I might in the regular season? Talk about some of those topics of, again, playing before a hand 2 times already and also looking forward to this game. Maybe the coaches change up their actual philosophy during the season.
Yeah, Frank Reich is not going to win the award this year. If I had a vote, Frank Reich would absolutely be my NFL Coach of the Year. I don't think it's even that close. I really don't. When you look at the way Indy started with that 1-5 record and what he was able to craft, both offensively and defensively, from a somewhat flawed roster coming into the campaign, Frank Reich is brilliant in that regard. And I've been thoroughly impressed with what he's done with the Indianapolis Colts in terms of getting them prepared for their opponent every single week. We saw what Frank Reich does in the playoffs last year. What does he do? He plays aggressive. We saw that in the first meeting against the Texans, where, as you mentioned, he went for it in a dicey spot in overtime that ended up costing them a win. Frank Reich is not going to dial it down in a playoff game. I would think it'd be more likely for him to dial it up. And as we saw the shootout when these two teams played just a few weeks ago, bettors are certainly expecting that. The market's certainly expecting that in the rematch number 3, or the third meeting of these three, rematch number 2, the third meeting of these two teams. You guys know what I mean, coming up on Saturday night.
4 games this weekend, Teddy, in the NFL. 2 of them are in domes. So the second we're going to take a look at as well is the Saturday night affair between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. This line also on the move, Teddy, but we're seeing some rising and falling. Open up around 41.5, rising up to around 44, now settling back in that 43 range. Obviously, 2 teams that we take a look at, bread and butter here, I think we can agree on, is going to be the running game of both teams. Zeke Elliott on one side, Carson on the other side. 2 quarterbacks that are mobile. One offensive line, to me, the Dallas Cowboys, much better than the Seattle Seahawks. But we're also talking about the NFL here, and it's the playoffs, and we want to ground and pound and play football. But we're also talking about the low 40s. We're not saying, the college football game is at 59.5 or 60. 41, 42, 43, not a lot of points here. Taking a look at some of the interesting information in this one. Over the season, Teddy, if we talk about a 16-game schedule, Seattle giving up 21.7 points per game. The Dallas Cowboys giving up just about the same at 20.3. But over the last 3 games, Both of these teams on defense, Teddy, giving up at least a touchdown more. The Seattle Seahawks over the last 3 games, 27 points per game, and the Dallas Cowboys at 26 points per game. So a little bit of movement late. And I know we can say that Giants game that they played with the Cowboys and then the Arizona Cardinals game that you played with Seattle, not all the way invested in that game. So the scores might have been a little bit higher than what they should have been. But talk about some of this line movement that we're looking in, which I think leads to a lower scoring game with the style of play. But what can we see in this game, Teddy?
Well, it certainly is a type of game where both teams are likely to try to establish the run in that regard. So you can understand from how's this game going to play out, first quarter under, first half under might be worth a look, even with the total getting bet up. Although, as you mentioned, 41.5 all the way up as high as 44. We've seen some buyback on the under down to 43 where the line has settled. But much like in the first game we were just talking about, why is this total moving? Injury news. That's what's going to move totals this stage of the week. Early week total moves largely injuries and weather. And what you're going to see right here, injuries. For Dallas, an offensive line that wasn't healthy. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, both likely to go this week. Advantage, offense. For Seattle, you don't know if Dwayne Brown or Fluker are going to be able to go, but there aren't many better quarterbacks in the NFL at creating on the fly, creating out of dead plays than Russell Wilson. The market's certainly reflecting that with this modest move towards the over.
And we'll add some of these plays here. Obviously, 4 games taken this weekend in the wild card weekend. Tomorrow on that betting show, we'll certainly spend a good deal on Football Friday on that betting show. But there's a lot more stuff to cover. There's a lot of games on television tonight, that people want to bet on, Teddy. Let's get right to it here. Watch what you bet. Very popular segment here on the show. Let's go in and see what Michigan is up to as Penn State travels into Chrysler Arena. Let's see what we got here. Penn State, 24th ranked overall defensive efficiency. You say, ooh, Teddy, that's really good defense. Not when you look at those Michigan Wolverines, a top 5 nationally defensive team here. And also, let's take a look at what they've done at home. Nearly unstoppable. Teddy winning by almost 18 points a game over their first 9 games at home. Does Penn State come in here and challenge these Michigan Wolverines? Or are we looking at more of the same, double-digit win and cover for those Michigan Wolverines at home?
Well, let's put it this way. Teams I'm interested in stepping in front of right now in college basketball do not include the Michigan Wolverines. I've been a John Beilein fan for many years. He's taken weaker rosters than this a long, long way, both in the regular season and in the month of March. And when you look at the Wolverines' level of defense right now, they, number 1 or number 2 in the country in just about every category. They're insane on the defensive end of the court. Now, the markets are always going to react to the 0-2 team. The 0-2 team in conference play generally gets some support. Must-win time. They got to win. Desperation. Okay, great. Penn State's only win. You want to talk about this? It was the worst beat of the year for anybody in any sport. Penn State's only road win this season. That came on the technical malfeasance, where they got 6 technical free throws at the end of the game, hit all 6, and covered the -5.5. That's the only game Penn State's won on the road all year at Duquesne. I do not trust the Nittany Lions to hang out and hang tough in Chrysler Arena. I really don't.
No, I'm taking a blowout. Teddy. I'm going to go with the MO right now. If you're going to win by 18 points a game, nothing really pushing you through. The only thing kind of interesting, Teddy, also, I'm going to get your point on this as well. Watching some games yesterday, it's still college break for most of these universities. Watched the game early from Maryland yesterday. Barely anybody in it. They had an ESPN game, I believe, Oklahoma State. Didn't look like they had more than 1,000 people in that arena in Gallagher-Iba. Do you take that into your effect at all as a sleepier, arena that you would have, as opposed to if this was middle of, let's just say, February and the place was rocking at this point?
So over Christmas, you see that situation happen all the time. And I always, from finals, from about mid-December through the end of the month, I'll always I use a blank 1 point less for my home court edge in college basketball. If I did more work on it, I could probably find an individual rating for every team. It's hard to do that. So I just take a point off for, it's about a 2.5 or 3 week stretch, the beginning of finals through the end of the year. By this weekend, everyone's back in town. So, the kids are back in Ann Arbor. So it's not a situation where it's going to be nobody there. That being said, for tonight's game, as opposed to this weekend's game and next week's games when everyone's back in town, there is probably a point less worth to the Michigan home court than there was a month ago, and there will be a month from now. Worth noting, Bryce Arena not going to sell out tonight, I don't believe.
Another interesting one here. We're going to go out to Pauley Pavilion for a Pac-12 battle here. Might even get Bill Walton on the call here in this nationally broadcast game. UCLA returning to the court. Yeah, UCLA returning to the court here without head coach Steve Alford in this one. Obviously going with the interim head coach for the rest of the year. And not a good look to get blown out by Liberty on your home court. Nothing has worked, it seems, right for Steve Alford in his tenure out there with UCLA. Much more was expected. Now he's gone. The one interesting thing why we bring this game, said Donnie, why are you bringing up UCLA and Stanford? Not much here. Well, there are some interesting betting angles in this one, Teddy. If we take a look at this game as a whole, in college, in pros, in hockey, in football, in baseball, whatever it is, when the manager or the coach does get fired, do we see a bump? Do the kids actually play harder, or are they checked out in this one? If we take a look, UCLA favored right now by about 5.5 total of 148.5. What can we expect from the UCLA kids tonight with their coach being fired? Do we see a bump here?
Across sports, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, doesn't matter. Coach get fired, betting markets support that team the next game. Happens literally, it's like clockwork. Those 5.5s on UCLA, hell, the 6.5s are gone. The 7.5s are gone. It's 8 right now. The markets are in love with the UCLA Bruins without Steve Alford. Why? From all indications, to a man, the UCLA players didn't like their head coach particularly much. I'm not going to use the word hated, but they hated Steve Alford. Steve Alford was kind of a jerk. He did not get along with the team that he recruited. So what happens when the coach leaves and everyone hates him? And now, guess what? You face a the Pac-12 is down this year. Make no mistake about it. Stanford has been god-awful. They are not a good basketball team. And UCLA, who has underachieved dramatically, now playing free and fresh, they're supposed to blow this team out. And that's why we're seeing all the UCLA money for this ball game. Stanford, they have the one road win at NC Wilmington back on November 9th. It's been a while for the Cardinal. They're outclassed if UCLA comes to play. And from all indications, we should expect a concerted effort from the home favorite tonight. Of course, if you want UCLA, you've already missed the best of the number. But the markets are right. UCLA may well blow this team off the floor.
Teddy, let's get to the association. We're going to have a little bit of a conundrum here. We're going to get some tears. Are we going to get hugs? Are we going to get cheers? Are we going to get some video board replays of all the good times that Kawhi Leonard had down in San Antonio? Or are we going to get some of that San Antonio, Texas two-step meltdown there where the fans get upset that the Kawhi is coming back to town because he didn't want us and we had to trade him away, and now he's back in town? Interesting dichotomy setting up in this night. Will the welcome wagon be out for Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors in this game? Kyle Lowry is doubtful for this one. Teddy, coming back, very important to play well in front of those fans. Extra motivation in front of those fans. Spend a minute here to talk about this game and maybe some angles that we can approach with the Toronto Raptors versus the San Antonio Spurs.
Sure. Let me start with this. We did a little stock watch talking about the Miami Heat yesterday. If I'd have done a stock watch,
and they won, Teddy, and they won. Miami won, so there you go. Yeah.
Nice and easy. But San Antonio stock watch was pointed up about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they've been monsters. This team is an absolute point spread juggernaut right now. I have no in any Spurs game. Spurs are past right now. They are a one-way team for me, a team that underachieved early. Pop's got them going. And you look at the Spurs in December. Monsters against the spread, and the markets still haven't caught up with how good San Antonio actually is. Then you have the quotes, and yeah, I would think Kawhi is going to get a few boos in San Antonio tonight. Popovich, quote, "You move on in life. We're not going to redo what's happened in the past in any way, shape, or form. It's of no consequence at this point. And it does no good to go backward and talk about this, that, or the other." So Pop's trying to downplay it a little bit, as he should. Pop's, I don't think he dislikes Kawhi Leonard necessarily as a person, but how to defend Kawhi Leonard? One would think Pops might have a decent idea of that. Kawhi's quote, "Yeah, it's going to be fun. Everybody's anticipating this game. Things like that will only get me better for the long run. It's going to be a good game." Of course, Kawhi's coming off a monster showing, What did he score? 45 on Tuesday when the Raptors knocked off. Was it Philly on Tuesday night? Yeah, I think it was Utah on Tuesday.
Yeah,
and now he
blew 'em out.
scored
Yep.
30 more points 11 times this season. He's on fire right now. So you have Kawhi on fire. You have a Spurs team saying, "Oh well, things change. People move on." LaMarcus Aldridge. It's emotional for sure. I know it's definitely not another game for sure. Give me some popcorn. I just want to watch it, but I might have to play. I'm not stepping in front of the Spurs right now. I'm really not. It's San Antonio or pass for me in this one. Kawhi Leonard or not, Pop going to have an idea of how to shut down his former best player.
Yeah, I'm surprised Kawhi Leonard just didn't sit this one out for rest, just to be that ultimate troll and really get after the fan base. But it should be a good one tonight. We'll see how that crowd reacts. Last segment of the day, Teddy, a little bit of off the mic. We're going to take it back to the NFL here with the coaching carousel that we've had. Ticker, if you see the ticker up here, it's going to be up here in just a few moments. Bowles, Joseph, Lewis, Gase, Wilkes, Cotter, Jackson, and McCarthy all fired this year. And I know when you look and say, well, Steve Wilkes, Teddy, Steve Wilkes didn't even get a chance. He had 1 year. Let me tell you something. Any job that I've ever been in, you're going to give me a 5-year guaranteed contract for about $30 million and tell me after year 1 you don't like me anymore, but still going to pay me for the remainder of the 4 years, who actually won in that deal? Was it the Cardinals or Steve Wilkes? It was Steve Wilkes. But the question I want to bring up today is that coaching tree from Andy Reid and where it should land. I think Eric Bieniemy is a fantastic candidate coming through. Teddy, just some of the guys real quick under that tree of Andy Reid: John Harbaugh, Ron Rivera, Steve Spagnuolo, Todd Bowles, Doug Peterson, Sean McDermott, Matt Nagy, Brad Childress, Leslie Frazier, Pat Shurmur. He's been around a long time, was a very good coach in Philadelphia, reincarnated himself, obviously out in Kansas City. We'll see if he can make a run to a Super Bowl that he wasn't able to get in Philadelphia. But all these coaches moving around here, Teddy, I think to me, Eric Bieniemy is a great fit if he can get in the right situation and get the right young quarterback to motivate, because from the last 2 guys that we've seen of that Andy Reid tree, Nagy and also Peterson, done very well for themselves, Teddy.
Yeah. Look.
No. Come on. You agree with me and say that was the absolute right take, and that's the way we're going to close the show.
All these teams are screwed, okay? Because there's no good coaching candidates out there. Adam Gase got hosed in Miami. Adam Gase, I think, will be a great coach somewhere. Steve Wilkes might be a great coach somewhere. I thought Todd Bowles got kind of a rough. I mean, he went into a rebuilding situation. What happens when you go into a rebuilding situation? Your team rebuilds. Are the Jets poised to make noise next year? Yes, they are. They're going to be a lot better next year. Is that Todd Bowles' fault they weren't good this year and last year? No. It's just, no, it's not. But team after team, Donnie, is going to be in this exact same spot next year and the exact same spot the year after. It's not like there's a ton of great quarterbacks to go around. So every team's always looking for a quarterback. And it's not like there's a ton of great head coaches to go around. So half the league is always looking for a head coach. And yeah, maybe Eric Bieniemy walks into a great spot, and maybe the first year his quarterback gets hurt and he loses 3 offensive linemen and they go 3-13 and all right, bye. It's a crapshoot when it comes to coaches. Bill Belichick will tell you that. He was an absolute failure in Cleveland and got run out of town.
Fantastic, folks. That betting show just about wraps it up here for January 3rd. Tune in tomorrow. Me and Teddy get after it in Wild Card Weekend. We'll have some fun with that. Thanks again for tuning in. Always support the channels here at sportsbookreview.com. He's Teddy. I'm Donnie. Have a great day, and we'll catch you tomorrow.